at the end. Okay, so welcome to February 2023. Each year I try to do a little bit of an update and letting people, at least give my opinions and views on what's going on in the marketplace, what I see happening, what I call observations, and then just what I also see as opportunities. So I'm going to basically go through, talk about some of the things I see, some of the discussions I've had through some of the brainstorming groups I'm with, and just share some points on that, and then look at market specific things and then opportunities that I see for realtors for 2023. Now, this is also not just me talking at you. If you do have any questions at all, we are going to have a Q&A at the end. We're going to have some dialogue as we're going through it. I appreciate everybody being here because one thing about real estate that we know is that it changes daily. It's the exciting part of our business, and it's sometimes the nerve-wracking part of our business. So depending on how you look at it. I've been doing this a long time, and there's one thing that is definitely consistent about real estate is that it does change. It can change fast, as we've seen. So basically, I'm going to start with the observations. Employment is something that really drives our understanding of the possibility of consumers who could buy real estate. And so there's been lots of discussion, obviously, with interest rates skyrocketing or changing dramatically as they did in such a short period of time. Where are buyers, where's consumers going to be in relation to affordability? Well, with the employment, what I want, and that's why we put this up here, is employment today is hovering right around 5%. And if you historically look at going back, we put this chart up from 2004, our marketplace, if you actually looked at what took place in real estate from 2004 and to basically, let's call it 2019, before we had the 2 years of uncertainty and things. If you look at where we are today with unemployment rates, we're at the bottom end. We are, a strong marketplace. There is good employment. There is, people that do want to work. There is jobs out there for them. And so, whereas previously in, different recessions, let's call it, the ones I was in before 2000, talking about the one, let's call it 1990, 91, one of the issues was there was high unemployment. So you had high unemployment, higher interest rates, and that's not like what we're seeing today. And so one of the things to understand is, yes, there's been a shift in the marketplace. How does that look moving forward? Well, moving forward, one of the things that is in our favor is the fact that there's low unemployment. We're also seeing what and maybe some of you have already started hearing this and seeing this, is we've seen a little bit lower unemployment because some folks and people that, because of the interest rates increasing, unfortunately, income to the household, now with higher interest rates, some of them are going back to work that weren't intending to go back to work, but they have gone back to work, which has brought down that unemployment rate. So where some households were saying, okay, we got low interest rates, we can either work part-time or stagger our hours, have now gone back into the workforce. So I don't know if anybody else has been seeing that, but that is a trend that has started happening. And when you drive around, there are so many locations that say, we're hiring, which is very good for the economy. Okay, so I wanted to point out that the unemployment rate is low. Consumers are having income. The actual income has risen because of the shortage of the workforce. So something to keep in mind as we move forward, okay? Next, one of the observations I have is immigration. And there has been lots of talk about immigration and the the impact it has on real estate. Now, during the COVID period of time, we had very to no immigration coming through the borders because of the restrictions. The immigration that we did have, there was 405,000 that elected to become permanent residents, but 70% of those were already living in Canada. Okay, so the impact that we would see from a number like that coming into the borders into Canada was not realized because majority of them were already living here and just elected to get their permanent residency. Now, moving forward, what we are going to see is the government has analyzed everything, okay? And the immigration, and this is something that doing my investigations that I found very interesting. Immigration accounts for almost 100% of Canada's labor force growth. Okay, so understand that. The way that our labor force grows is almost 100% from immigration. We have not had immigration coming into the country in about 3 years. That is about to change. In 2022, we had 405, 70% of them were already living here. 2023, they're allowing 465,000 immigrants to come in. 2024, 485,000. 2025, 500,000. Okay? Understanding that our workforce needs specific jobs. Okay, we need to have people come in specifically for jobs. The government, as of now, has what they have now created is what's called the New Express Entry. And it's for they've added 16 new occupations. Okay, so if you look at this list, these now, if you are outside of Canada and you are in this 16 groups, you can actually be fast-tracked with other qualifications, but you can be fast-tracked what they call through their express entry system. From the time of application, you could be in Canada within 6 months, which is advanced quite substantially from the regular process. So Canada is looking at this as saying, okay, we have jobs that have to be filled. These are the specific areas, so we're going to add these in. So moving forward, we now have this opportunity of where this, 465,000, okay, not all of them are going to be through the express entry, but lots are. And through the express entry, the process is faster. They're coming in, lots of them, with jobs waiting for them. Okay, and there is some financial stuff that they have to bring with them. So when we look at this, we have to understand that this is an opportunity. I'm going to talk about it later, but I want everybody to understand that immigration is really, really important. One, to the growth of Canada. Two, to our real estate market, to the point where the government has projected that as of 2032, okay, it's projected that immigration is going to account for 100% of Canada's population growth. So that is something to really understand. So the thing to look at is, why is that? Well, we have an aging population. We have a population that can continue to work. We no longer have a mandatory retirement age. But over the next 3 years, projections are 900,000 people are going to take themselves out of the workforce. How do we replace those workers and still in a position today that we have, jobs that aren't even being filled? That's why the immigration is definitely being increased. And we're going to talk about how that becomes an opportunity for everybody in a little bit later. Okay. Now we get into, we're going to talk about supply and demand. Well, last few years, we've been talking about seller's market, limited supply, high demand. So therefore, we ended up having the crazy marketplace. Today, through my analysis, and I'm going to show some graphs a little bit later, we are more into a balanced marketplace. Okay, we have definitely seen an increase in inventory, but we haven't we've seen the increase in inventory, but we haven't seen an onslaught. And the reason I say that is because two factors. One, we have areas that consumers who were thinking about selling have decided not to sell. So they decided not to put their home on the market. We have people that were on the market, couldn't realize the price that they were anticipating and realized and said, okay, you know what? If my equity has depleted to that value, I'm just going to stay where we are. So those people aren't coming on the market or came off the market. Buyers that were in the market, that were in the market because of reduced interest rates, have taken themselves out of the marketplace because they can't afford it. Because of the rise in interest rates, and that even though prices have come down a little bit, they're not matching. So they're not in the market anymore. So we ended up, instead of swinging from a crazy seller's market right over to a definite buyer's marketplace, my study shows that we're in balance, which is the right place to be. Strong employment, balanced marketplace. Now, in some areas, and with some graphs later, I'm going to show you, in some areas, it still is a very strong seller's marketplace in Ontario and in other parts of Canada. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I just wanted to really touch on the supply and demand, because real estate is all about supply and demand, right? We have buyers, we have sellers. If we have lots of listings, not enough buyers, obviously, that's a different marketplace. We come from lots of buyers, no sellers, different marketplace. Now we're into what I find as being more normalized, and we still have a little bit more of adjustment to do, and I will discuss that. But right now, just want to understand where the supply and demand is based on my evaluation, looking at what's going on across Canada. Okay. One of the other observations and trends that happened because of what's happened in the last 3 years is hybrid work arrangements. So now we're talking about where, what drove people out of the urban areas, out into the outskirts, out into the towns that were not part of the big core, was everybody's going to be working from home. So we had that exodus from some of the major cities. Then that switched from, okay, everybody's working from home. Now we want just a few people to start coming back into the office place. Well, today what's taking place is we have companies that are in the major centers across Canada that have revamped their workspace and are now asking people that were strictly 100% work from home to actually start coming back in. And this trend started about a year and a bit ago. But now companies have actually designed space where they will have teams of their company that will come in. They'll have a couple teams that will come in on a Monday, Tuesday. They will be gone. The other teams come in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The following week, the teams that were there only 2 days will be there 3 days. So what's taking place is you're now having people that were 100% thinking they were going to be working from home. Now they have to start coming into the office. So that may change some of the demographics of where people are going to look at where they can live. So we definitely saw in Toronto last year where more people were coming back into the city, and that's why we had the rents escalate as much as they did. Okay. So just that is another observation. So in your own backyard, in your certain communities, a couple of things to look at if you're outside the GTA, how many GTA buyers are actually coming in to the areas, such as I know, Sudbury, North Bay, the Niagara region, places like that, that had massive, massive amounts of GTA people coming. In my discussions, that has dwindled. Okay. And I'm sure when we do open dialogue, we'll get some feedback from some of the folks that are in those areas. The other observation that I'm looking at is home affordability. And this is really a big discussion about, what can somebody afford? Let's just take a round number. Someone has $3,000 a month that they want to spend on being able to live somewhere. What does that get them? Well, when the interest rates are 2% or lower, it gets them a lot more than when they're at 5, 6%. So this graph takes you back to, now I know most of you probably were not in the business back in 1990. I know some of you were. I was. And I can certainly share with you that if you look at this graph and you go back to 1990, at the beginning of the chart, that is when we came out of a crazy market. Interest rates were high, unemployment was high, and the affordability, you can see, was almost 55%. So what's happened in the last few years? We look at it, and even though we had cheap money, prices were soaring. So when prices are soaring, the affordability changes because obviously the increase in price. Well, now we get the double whammy where the affordability is still, the price is still high, but now the interest rates are high. So the actual cost after tax of someone trying to find a place to live has creeped over 55% of their income, taxable income. That cannot be sustainable. So what it does, it actually draws consumers, as we talked about, buyers out of the marketplace. They can't do it. So the anticipation is that one, they raised interest rates to get inflation under control. Then the issue with that is that now we have people that can't afford to buy something and the rents have increased. So now we have people that are, the rents have increased. So now they're even struggling a little bit with that. But what's taking place is they're trying to bring that inflation down so that after tax will start, we have prices that have come down a little bit, which is going to help bring the average, bring it back down into around where we have a good market. But that's going to take some time. Interest rates are going to be where they are for a little while. They are eventually going to come down, but it may not happen for another year to 2 years before we even start. And when they start, it's not coming down fast. They're going to do what they've done in the history shows. They'll adjust down maybe by 25 basis points and sit and wait and see what happens. Definitely not the way they increased in the last 8 go-arounds. So affordability is definitely going to be stressed. Okay, and Michelle, if you can just, next slide, I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by this. So January 20th, through all of the ITSO MLSs, there were new listings of 7,586. Okay, now we're talking about, the market changed, swung over. Well, January 2023, 7,012 new listings came up. Really close comparison. But look at the difference in the prime rate. January 2020, 3.95. 23, 6.7%. And if we look at what the average price was in January 20, 525, 551, but even with the adjustment that we've seen over the since February of 2022, we're still seeing that we're 37% higher from where we were throughout the ITSO MLSs than where we were in January 2020. Yet, if you look at the interest rates, they've almost doubled. Not quite, but to that point. So the affordability level really reverts back to what that chart is showing. So the only way we're going to be able to get back to the affordability to where we're below and more normalized is only 2 things can happen. Prices have to adjust lower or interest rates have to come down. I believe it's going to be a combination of both over the next 18 months. Okay. But I just want to show you that example so you can understand, why where we are today with affordability. Okay. Now, there's a couple areas of Canada, though, that are not having this kind of scenario. You have Alberta, Saskatchewan, and parts of the maritime provinces that did not, during our crazy marketplace over the last few years, have the high escalations, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So today, their affordability is nowhere in the realm that we just saw at 50–55%. They're actually way lower. And now they're seeing provincial migration from other provinces into those areas, including St. John's, Newfoundland. One, they've got pricing is really good, affordability is good. The economy in those areas has turned around from times that where it was low. So they're actually seeing where in certain areas they're now seeing multiple offers. I talked to people in Calgary, talked to some in Edmonton, and and Saskatoon, and they're actually seeing where some of their properties are getting multiple offers. So the affordability is not the same all across Canada. Majority of it is, except for some of the provinces. So there's opportunities there as well. Okay, so something that we're going to talk about a little bit later too. Now we'll go into another observation is consumer sentiment. I've done lots of different calls, talked to different areas, talked to different people, and the words that I'm going to describe of what I'm hearing from both buyers and sellers is uncertain, confused, scared in some instances, not sure what to do, when to do it, or if to do it at all. And so when you have consumers that are in that realm and that unsureness, let's call it, they just don't do anything. So you're going to have people that you're going to be talking with that are thinking about doing something, that are going to be, okay, let's get all the information. And then at the near the end of it, they're going to go, you know what? Our best decision is no decision. And I'm sure already you're seeing some of that. That is normal. Okay. This is just normal. This is something that you're going to have to go through. So what that tells me is, and I've been through it, is you have to understand that. You also have to understand that for you to maintain, even to maintain the same transaction levels that you were doing previously the last few years, you have to talk to that many more people. You have to engage with that many more people. You have to create that many more opportunities of being able to do business, because unlike the last few years where you could work with a smaller number that were definitely going to be doing something, we're back to a normalized market where not 1 in 4 are going to do something. Okay, I can certainly share with you and then that a normalized market, in my opinion, is if you want to have 2 deals a month, you need to be working with 10 people. Okay, to consistently have 2 deals a month, you need to be rotating a group of 10 people, sellers and buyers that are, talking about doing something seriously, not wishy-washy. They're actually interested in doing something. Because if you don't have that many and you have a smaller number, what takes place is you work with that smaller number, you get them into something, and then you have to start prospecting all over again to be able to get that flow of more people. So if I can get you to take anything from this is you need to be trying to work and have 10 people that you are like A and Bs. Okay, I always, A, B, C, Ds are, category of motivation. So in this marketplace, which I'm going to suggest we're going to see through 2023 and half of 2024, you need to be working with more people. You need to be prospecting more. You need to be following up more. You really need to perfect your profession and really get back to the basics. And any trainers that you now, if you're getting any information from any trainers, all of it is back to the basics, back to doing, like one we got the other day was, okay, we're going back to doing geographical farming. We're going back to doing mailouts. We're going back to doing database management. So everything is back to doing what you should be doing anyways. But please understand that with consumer sentiment, you're going to have to do a little bit more, because they are going to all of a sudden put their hands up. No, we're not doing this. Okay, so it's nothing to do with you. It's just that's what you're going to be going through. Okay. Another observation is the rental market. You know, what I see in the rental market taking place, depending on where you are in the province of Ontario, the rental market will be different. What I see for the GTA is, you know, the GTA last year, we had a huge increase in rental appreciation, which is great for investors, great for people that, you know, have a rental property because it had dropped. But what now is going to be taking place is we had, let me backtrack. We had big increase because we had people coming back to Toronto for, you know, coming back for hybrid working, and they're starting to rent places. We had university students, which are huge, huge tenants in the GTA area. So they started all coming back. So we had, and then you had the people that were going, I'm not sure what this market's going to do, so I'm going to rent. So you had this medley of people all going, okay, I'm going to rent, I'm going to rent, I'm going to rent. And now the marketplace is still pretty tight, but this year it's projected and estimated there are between 25,000 and 32,000 pre-construction condos and other units that are going to be occupied this year. So these are properties that people may have bought 3-4 years ago that now today the construction is finished. Majority of those are bought by investors. So those properties are going to be coming on to the rental pool, majority of them. Okay, that is going to give more of a balance to our rental market in the GTA area. Okay, which is not a bad thing. I can actually, you know, I'm just looking over, you know, sort of the GTA condominium marketplace. Just I was on a couple days ago and looking in for this particular session. I'm actually seeing in some of the condo rentals, they're reducing the price. They tried upping the price to get to a certain point, and they were getting, and now I'm starting to see where they're reducing the price because they don't have a tenant yet. They've been on the market 60 days. So that's because we're starting to see a lot of these pre-construction properties coming on. Okay, now outside of the GTA, looking into marketplaces that are a couple hours away, you will not have that same impact. You might have a little bit, but my understanding through conversations is that, you know, in certain areas, the rental market is only 1-2% vacancy. So places like, you know, I talked to Carl Young in Sudbury, and I know, you know, he's showing that very strong market there still, you know, or if you have a place for rent, there's some demand for it. I know that in North Bay as well. So you have to look at where you are to understand the rental market, but it's either going to be really tight where you are, but if you're in the GTA area and some of the centers throughout Canada where they had a big influx of new construction that are all starting to come online, that's going to soften a little bit. Okay. Another observation, builders and new construction, no matter where you are in Ontario, builders right now, they are really looking at, do they want to bring a project out or are they going to sit on it? Unless they've already started the project, conversations with different builders they are going to just sit and wait. It could be up to 2 years because they are looking at a couple things. They're looking at affordability for their consumer, as well as really trying to get a handle on construction prices. Still today, even though it has opened a bit, the supply chains are still tight and there's still material costs. Now, some of it's starting to open up, but they anticipate within a couple of years, it'll be more open than it is today. So some of the builders that I've talked with have definitely said, We're not bringing anything new. We have projected to do it if the market was still going to stay strong, but we're actually going to take that off. And I'm hearing that through different parts of Canada as well. Okay, so if you are looking at how that'll impact, well, it also means that any consumers that are looking at buying, if those new projects aren't coming to the marketplace, then resale may be the other option for them. Okay. Next observation, variable rate mortgages. Lots of discussion about them right now. This is a graph that really shows, oh, there it is. This is a graph that shows what's going on and history-wise, the difference between a fixed and a variable. Now, over a period of time, like we're going back to 1996 up to January 22, it showed that over a period of time, the actual variable rate was a better consumer option versus a fixed. 22 to 23, January 23, big difference, okay? The best 5-year variable rate a year ago was 0.85%. Today, it's 5.3%. Big difference. What does that actually mean today? Well, what you have to understand is variable rate mortgages, when they were first introduced, they were actually introduced with the fact that the idea was the interest rates can fluctuate, but your payments aren't going to change. It just means that the payment we take out, majority of it, if the rate was going up, then less is going to the principal, but your payments weren't changing. The institutions in the last few years have changed their way the variable rate works. They actually now called it an adjustable variable rate. And lots of consumers are getting caught off guard because of this change, where now with the variable rate change, it means your payments actually change. So lots of consumers who took the variable are now paying 3-4 percentage points higher, if not more, than they were originally when they took it out. And their payments, in some cases, have almost doubled. This is a big change. And this is over history. That is not the way originally the variable rates worked. So today, what that means is there are a lot of consumers who are in positions where either an investment property or their own home are sitting in very stressed right now because of the way the variable rate has changed. And lots of them are at the point where they can't change into a fixed because the fixed is actually even a little bit higher than the variable rate that they have now. So they're playing that game. And unfortunately, I don't see the variable rate changing at all, if not even a little bit, for the next 6 to 12 months. So those people that are in that variable rate position have some decisions to make. And we're going to talk about that opportunity for realtors a little bit down, okay, a little bit of a change down the road. Other observation that you have to be aware of, private mortgages. During the crazy market where people were, we had 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 offers on a property, majority of them were coming in firm, no financing condition, no conditions whatsoever. Well, except when they went to close, they couldn't qualify. So there are people out there who ended up taking, and I'm sure either some of your clients or maybe you had listings that at the last minute, all of a sudden the listing had to get delayed because they couldn't qualify to get the mortgage. So they rearranged private mortgages. Most private mortgages are put out on a 1 or 2 year term. So if we look at the impact of where we had those multiple offer situations, we are now, if it was 2 years ago that they bought, well, now we're at that renegotiating time, renewal time. Back then, they couldn't qualify at the interest rates that were back in that period of time, there's certainly, unless something drastically has changed in their life and their income and their finances, they're not going to be able to qualify today. Most private lenders will then look at having a real, if they're going to renew, the interest rate's going to be higher. Their renewal fees, charges are way higher. Okay. So I believe that there are people out there that are right now in a position that they have private mortgages on places they bought recently that are not going to be able to get refinanced. So again, another opportunity, we're going to talk about that, but something to be aware of. So if you have even your own clients that put private financing on, better start having some conversations with them and just really understand where they're at, what is it that they're looking to do, because there may be some limited options for them. Okay. Something new that you need to be aware of, another observation for 2023. I don't know how many of you are aware, but as of January 1st, 2023, anti-flipping legislation is now in place. So what you have to understand is the government, on the federal government, so this is across Canada, was cracking down on the idea of people that were individuals that would buy properties, go in and renovate, sell them, claim it was their principal residence, and not claim the profit in any way. So they've come out, and as of January 1st, anybody that buys a property and is not in it for at least a year, doesn't matter if that's your principal residence, unless you've got some really unique exceptions, they're going to deem any profit from that as being income, business income, not capital gains, where you actually can get some capital gains exemptions or reduction and tax on a lower amount. They actually deem it as business income. There are situations that are proven in court already where the government has gone in and said it's a business income. So people are flipping, and I know lots of people, lots of realtors do deal with people, and sometimes you do it yourself. Please understand that if you're doing that, not living in it, or immediately family member not living in it for a year, you are going to be subject to it being a business income, as well as HST is applicable to everything you did on that renovation that you'll get taxed on as well. Okay, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. There's definitely lots of information out there about it. But one of the things, the reason I'm bringing it up is it also matters to clients of yours that may have bought last year that now are in a position where they're going like, I need to sell, yet they're selling in 2023. They haven't lived in the house for a year yet. Prime example, and the best way to sort of give you exactly what this means. I have a client of mine, bought a new construction in 2018. Delayed. February 1st, 2022, got occupancy. Okay. Didn't get registered until May 26th, 2022. We had a tenant in it from March 1st, tenants moving out the end of this, so the end of this month. He had the opportunity of buying his grandmother's house. Great opportunity at Etobicoke. So he said, hey, Scott, you know what, let's do that. And I'm going to go ahead and do it. Great. He said, when the tenant moves out, or if the tenant stays, whatever, we're going to sell the condo. And I said, great. Condo's going to be vacant. We could do immediate possession date. I can't do immediate possession date because unless he hangs on to it for a year, so the end of May 2023, all the appreciation that he's made, can understand, he bought it in 2018 for $469. Today it's worth $725. All of that would be classified as business income. Okay, so we can't close that house until after the end of May. So that is a scenario that is real, live today. Checked with the government to say, well, he bought it way back when. It doesn't matter. Business, the registration and when he owned it happened in May 2022. You sell it anytime before May 2023. All that appreciation is business tax subject to 100% tax and HST. Okay, so please look at bring it up. Maybe I'll send the article to you as well, but understand how that works, because if you are a realtor and you go in and you say, hey, yeah, no problem, we can sell it, and it turns out that it was not, they didn't have it for a whole year and there is some tax and you didn't advise them properly, you know that they're going to be coming looking for you. Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand that. Any questions at all, reach out to me if you come into that, come across that situation, but it is brand new as of January 1st, 2023. Okay. One more observation, and then we're going to get into some specifics, marketplaces, and then open discussion. This is something that has been in the news. We're really talking about stuff that is, we look at and go, what do we do about this? How can we help as a realtor? And what I'm referencing is mortgage and title fraud, how it's increasing. Police are all over the media saying, this is happening, mortgage companies, title insurance companies, okay? There are situations where the one that was publicized in Toronto, there are 2 Royal LePage agents and the brokerage that are being investigated for the possibility of them being involved because they did the FINTRAC. Now, it turns out based on, we just did our normal procedure. So a couple of things to really look at is it's your due diligence as a realtor, and it's going to be really, this is going to be really being pushed now on how are you identifying people? How are you looking at and screening the people? How are you looking at their identification? Are you Googling them to see if the information they're giving you is correct? Are you going through and saying, checking stuff? I can honestly tell you, if I look at the driver's license, and I caught one that was expired, but it was my old client, and she's, it's coming or whatever. But they're making, driver's license that look perfect. So a couple new steps that I've discovered that I'd like to recommend you do, and highly recommend it, because if you show you've done your due diligence, then you're going to be protected in the event that this does happen. Lots of times the way this works is the people look at renting a vacant property first. They get into they get into it as vacant property, and then someone else acts as the seller, and it gets buyers coming through, and it gets sold without anybody knowing until all of a sudden, that it is discovered. And that's what happened in the case of Toronto. So a couple of things I highly recommend. Get 2 pieces of photo ID instead of just the driver's license, okay? And really scrutinize them. Like I would look at, if you can get a passport and a driver's license, then that's great. But do get 2 pieces of ID and retain them. We all talked about, I'm not allowed to photo. I'm now saying you keep that information so that you can say, this is what I've got. And you put it in the file. As long as the file is locked up or it's in paperless and secured, then you're fine with keeping the identification. Okay, highly recommend 2 pieces now instead of just 1. The other thing that I came across and I want to share with you is when it comes to driver's license, you can actually now go on and do a driver's license verification. Okay, and I did, and I went and checked my own. And it is quite simple. You go in, you take the driver's license, you put the driver's license number in, and it will actually give you a Ministry of Transportation check results. and it'll show it as being valid. If it is a fraudulent driver's license, it'll come up as being not valid, not issued, and that's going to be obviously a red flag. But if you can at least in your files show, I got 2 pieces of ID. I verified the driver's license, it was valid. And you can take that and put it in your file. You're showing that you did your due diligence. Okay. So that is the site. I tried it myself. My license is valid, so I'm good to go. I'm legit. So, but this is the next step that I would really like to see and recommend that you do for doing checks with anybody, and buyers, sellers, anywhere that you're getting a driver's license, do the check. Okay. Thought I'd throw that out there because I wasn't sure if anybody's aware of that. So those are my observations. I'm going to just move on a little bit to specific markets. And the reason is because, there's different areas that we serve. There's different places that we have offices, and, we're also part of Canada. So one of the, I want to talk about Ottawa, basically because, Steve Bernay was gracious. He supplied me with the whole idea of what's going on in Ottawa. And the chart will actually show you, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, and just the start of 23 in the first few columns there. And with talking with Steve, the Ottawa market usually is very consistent. It never used to have the big highs, never used to have the big lows. I know over history that I'm aware of that too. Right now, the Ottawa market, he said, is dropped back to about where average pricing now is back to around the mid to 2021. Still a good market, he said, but pricing is really important. If you're above a little bit too high, you get the odd showings, but you're not getting the offers. You price it right on, buyers are there. Okay, so that's very important to understand. Carl sent me some information about Sudbury. Sudbury, very good, strong marketplace. It actually has the average pricing has stayed pretty strong. And the reason is that low inventory. If you look at the first column, normally, it was called a normalized marketplace, 2013 to 2017. They had active listings that were, 2,000, 22, 2,300, 2,400. You look at the last few years, 2022, 893 average as an active listing. Unbelievable. Low inventory still today. So that marketplace is different than what we see in other areas. And so what I did is those 2 boards, Sudbury and Ottawa, are not on the all ITSO boards. That's why I'm showing those separately. ITSO is a combination of about 25 different boards, maybe 28 now. And so what I did is I took an average of all ITSO. In the 1 year across all the ITSO, which is pretty well everything in Ontario, except for Toronto, Ottawa, and Sudbury. And this will give you the average. This is only what took place in the 1 year. We all know this. We've seen this chart going down the way it is. The reason I'm showing it is I want to show you what happened the last 3 years. So today, we're still above where we were in the beginning of 2020. Okay, so if you look at that and go, okay, if I'm dealing with sellers that had bought before 2020 or parts of even 2021, they still have a good appreciation. Yeah, they missed out on the top, but there's a good appreciation there of equity in their home that they can take advantage of a marketplace if they need to move and still have equity there. Over history, and this is what I'd be showing buyers, over history is, hey, you buy today, yeah, look, you come off the peak, but look over history over the last 13 years, the market has continued. And if you now imagine, if you took a straight line and just sort of followed that curve, knocked out 20, 21, 22, and basically looked at that 23, this is where I'm suggesting that I still anticipate the next 2 or 3 months, we're going to see that average pricing is still going to come down a little bit, but then it's going to start leveling off. as we hit our spring market. Okay, but I wanted to show you that graph. Now, Toronto this is something that, you know, and this is, oh, one more thing before we get inventory. This is all ITSO, where current today homes for sale. And if you look at it, like, look at the history. You know, we had really good, steady market 2010 right through to 2017. They had much higher inventory during those years. So the fear of what's going to take place in 2023, I look at this as being, if you're working and you work properly in 2023, there's lots of business out there. You just have to look at history to determine that. So even if the inventory climbs a bit higher, we're still below where we were from 2010 to 2016, 2017. Okay, so there is going to be a good marketplace. Yeah, you're going to have to work. You have to work smart. You have to work harder. But there is a marketplace. It's not dead. Okay, and that's why I wanted to show you that, because people are feared that there's so many listings, and if more come on, the market's just going to be flooded.
No,
it's not. We got a long way to go before we're even anywhere near where we were, 7, 8 years ago. Okay. Toronto, on the other hand, basically just give you an idea, quick, scenario is that the detached average price, it dropped by, 13.4%. Semi-detached dropped by 14.5%. Freehold townhouses dropped, which we anticipate. We know that. The overall average, though, was only 9%. And the reason is the condo apartments, okay, year over year are flat. They didn't drop. Yeah, they spiked in the beginning of 2022. Yeah, and they dropped off, but comparably, they're where they were. And I can from experience, I checked into a place that a client of mine bought in September-ish of 2021. I looked at the price just this month. It's exactly where he paid. A unit exactly the same of him, is same layout, same lake view, sold exactly or a little bit higher than the price he paid. So that gives you that these stats are right on. Okay, so the thing to look at is you've got to show the history. You got to understand where we are, got to show the history. Yeah, we've got an area that of people who have bought within the last 12 months or so, 12, 18 months, that could be in a position where their equity that they put in is gone, and maybe in a position that they can't sell because there is no equity there, depending on when they bought. So you really have to look at that. And then from a Canadian point of view, and I have mentioned in different sessions that instead of doing average pricing, you really need to learn how to do the benchmark. Okay, CREA, the system is unique to Canada, and it really does fine tune the real comparisons. Okay, but even looking at this, you can see that over since 2005 to today, as a consumer, if you bought real estate, look where it appreciated. Real estate we always sold it as a long-term investment. Today, if I'm talking with buyers, I'm expressing to them, yeah, you're taking advantage. Yeah, the interest rates went up, but prices have come down. And if we look at history, this market over the next year or so, and then we're going to start seeing some gradual appreciation. But why not try and get in now, where you can take advantage of where the marketplace is, some motivated sellers, take advantage of that, knowing long-term it's going to appreciate. So use the graphs, use the idea that you can show the buyers what's going on. And so that's all my observations. We're going to open it up now. If you want to unmute, you want to participate, I want to talk about the opportunities. Okay. We probably have about another 10 minutes left. But opportunities. So here's what I see as opportunities. Motivated sellers are definitely out there because of interest rate impact on their property, okay? On their mortgage renewals, on their variable rates. Definitely, there are motivated sellers out there, and I'm gonna let you know how you're gonna find them. Pre-construction buyers, here's another opportunity. Pre-construction buyers who bought years ago now have to actually close on the property, and they can't because of the higher interest rates. Understand, when you buy pre-construction, you have to get it, approved based on that you can close on the property, but that's at that current rate. That was possibly 3 years ago. Totally different number today. So I've seen this before, and I know we're going to see it, and we're going to start seeing it again, is that there will be people who bought pre-construction who cannot afford to close. Understanding if they can't close, lots of pre-construction have huge deposits. They're going to lose their deposits. So in cases like this is an opportunity where some of these people, pre-construction buyers who can't afford to close, will give up any appreciation that they've accumulated just to be able to get their original deposits back. So to me, that's a great opportunity. But you really have to understand how assignments work, okay? If you're not sure how assignments work, reach out to me, reach out to your broker of record, or somebody who else has done them. But I think you really need to, the opportunity there is for people who have bought pre-construction, can't close. I'd be advertising, I'd be posting somewhere saying, hey, if you bought a pre-construction, aren't in a position to close, I may be able to help. But you have to understand how you can do assignment sales. Okay. I think there's a great opportunity there. I think there's a great opportunity for buyers to take advantage of that. Okay. I was talking about motivated sellers. People are not going to tell you they're in financial disarray. Very few of them, unless you already have a relationship with them. History has shown me that I used to be a big door knocker. When I was door knocking, and all of a sudden people were in a position where it's like, you know what, I just found out that our mortgage rates are changing. I need to find out what we can do with this. They were more open to me as a stranger than they would be to some of their friends and stuff. So if I can express anything to you, look at advertising. If you want to do it by, if you're going to do it by any type of social media, look at advertising that you can help them understand what they can or can't do if their mortgage rates have changed and how it affects the equity in their house. Okay, that'd be a great, that's information that consumers can find. Otherwise, hit the streets. I'd be knocking doors like crazy, because you are going to come across somebody that's going to go, hey, you know what? We just found out our renewal's coming in and we don't know what to do because we can't afford the renewal. We may have to look at selling. Anyways, I know I've done it, worked for me in the past. I know some people aren't the door knockers, some of them are social media stuff. Whatever it is, these are topics that I think you can take advantage of, because this is what consumers are facing today. Okay. The other advantage, when you are looking at getting a listing, or if you are a buyer's agent talking to a listing agent, please ask the question, is there any existing financing on there, and what is it? Okay, today, imagine now that a year and a half ago, I can tell you my own property. A year and a half ago, my bank calls me. I've got my principal residence, still has some financing on it. And they called me and they said, Scott, your mortgage is coming up for renewal, but not for 8 months. We'd like to offer you 2% at for 5-year further term. Okay, perfect, I'll take it. So my property has a 2% mortgage if I was to sell today, and we close for another 3 years. That's an advantage. So make sure, if you are talking with any sellers, or as I say, representing a buyer, find out if there's some existing financing that's attractive. And if the principal amount is not the full amount you need, you can actually, most companies will allow you to assume that, qualifying of course, and they'll blend it with the existing rate. And that rate may be lower than if they went and got a new mortgage. Okay, I'm talking old school real estate now, because for many, many years, the idea of, oh, you got a mortgage, just discharge it, they'll get their own. Well, today, if they've got an existing mortgage that's good term and low interest rate, that's a huge advantage, right? We talked about the immigration. I would highly recommend that you look at understanding what those policies are. I would recommend you align yourself with several immigration lawyers, paralegals that deal with immigration, government agencies that deal with immigration. Please understand, they're not, these people aren't going to come in and buy right away. Normally they rent for a year, but they turn into buyers. They're also coming into Canada with specific jobs, getting good income. So I would try and align with anybody that services that system to bring immigration in. Absolutely align for it. The other thing you could do, you could become somebody that really, really is familiar with it, and you could start posting that saying you can help accommodations. There are government programs out there. The government will actually, in certain instances, will assist in the finance, now you're dealing with rentals in the beginning, so you got to have some patience for that. But these people turn into buyers. So I think there's another opportunity there. Another opportunity is understanding that builders, when the market switched, didn't sell out all their sites. There are builders out there that will have leftover inventory. They will look at, and I know they will look at having great incentives for your buyers. So you need to research that. There are ways you can find out. You could there's stuff through the MLS, there's stuff through other areas that you can find out what inventory is available that builders have. And I would check out all the different builders. Doesn't matter if small town, big town, doesn't matter where you are. If there's any type of construction site or builders, check and see if they have any existing inventory. They may not reduce the price depending on where they are. Sometimes they will, but they'll throw in a whole bunch of incentives to make it work better. Okay. So I see that as an opportunity. Couple of things that you need to look at, make sure that you are doing is you've got to make sure that you're communicating with more people this year. Okay. And the reason I say that is, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to do the same number of deals, you're going to have to communicate with a lot more people this year than you have in the past to do the same number of deals. And consumers now, as the words I said before, they're confused, they're scared. They want professional guidance. They want to understand, want somebody that can guide them and help them through the scenario. So you need to make sure that you are up to date on all of this stuff. So I really believe that this year and every year, if you have the listings, if you control the inventory, you will have nothing but success. All the inventory, as I say, may not sell. Having the inventory brings you buyers, brings you opportunities for open houses, brings you clients and sellers that are going to be more motivated, more realistic than they've been in the last few years. So if you haven't been, aren't interested in being a lister, I suggest you really consider it, because in a marketplace like this, being a lister and a buyer's agent is where you're going to get a balanced income. Okay, that's my opinion. That's what I've lived through. So I really believe you need to look at that. Another opportunity, and some of you have already taken advantage of it, is Michelle is doing executive online present audits for people, making sure that your online presence, your bios, everything is connected, everything works. From a consumer's point of view, she goes in and analyzes and looks at things. We've had some great feedback from people that have done it, and sometimes it's just one little thing that needs to be changed, or something that they thought was working isn't working. I would take advantage of that. And then we also have Realty Executives International has something happening in February that you should look at doing. They're doing a session that is called Powered by Experts, and it's every Tuesday in February, starting February 7th. So there's 4 sessions, and they're bringing in different speakers, different topics That's available to you, free, no, whatever. You just book, you go on into Prime Agent, sign up for it. And once you sign up once, you're in for all of them. Okay. And if you can't make all of them, but you've signed up, then you also get the recordings. So I just want to say that's sort of what I have. I'd really like to open it up and I want to hear some comments, thoughts before we finish off in the next 5 minutes. Anybody have any thoughts, comments? Unmute yourself. Have I scared you all?
No. Contrary to my normally being a wet blanket and saying the market is crashing and I feel that we've reached our bottom where we're within 2 to 3% of that, and we should be on our way back up. My question is, I deal with a lot of elderly clients who do not have and have lived in the house for the last 50 odd years. They do not have any picture ID. How do I verify that? Okay,
so in that scenario where the people have lived there for a while, so you can do the title search. Make sure you do title search. See if there's anything, and when you do a title search, it gives you the option. Okay, it gives you the option of getting just what's currently listed, registered, or you can get a history. The first option is you just get to what's registered. Yeah. You can actually get the history. In situations like that, I would pay the extra, get the full history, because it gives you what else, when, how long ago, whatever has been registered ever on the property. Okay. Yeah. So then you can verify just by questions on, okay, hey, you had a mortgage on here. What do you remember who it was with? And you can verify some of that. So there's some questions that you can ask that would verify the answers. You can also look at history of utility bills too, making sure the same name has been on the utility bills.
Okay.
Okay. And then sometimes, Tina, in your scenario, unfortunately, one or the other party has passed away. And so I would reach out for the lawyer that handled that death certificates just to verify that that's available. Because then you have enough due diligence showing that person that's telling you they have the right to sell the house has a fair bit of information that flows.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
I have a question regarding a rental. Client is currently lives at the apartment, is moving out, and then is going to rent it for whatever period of time. Is that still considered what you were talking about, a flipping home, where he lived in it, maybe 2-3 years he'll be renting it out and then possibly sell it later on? Is that still considered flipping?
No.
I have a question that I'm not sure if it even pertains to the flipping. How does that apply to vacant land? If somebody bought vacant land and it's, they're trying to sell it in less than a year for a profit.
Land is, I don't know the answer. I'll have to look into it. I'll have to check sort of the government guidelines on it. It would be a matter of what the original intention was with it. And what I mean by that, if they bought the land, thought that they might be able to change the zoning, can't get the zoning changed, and said, okay, if we can't get the zoning changed, then we can't use the land for what we need it for, we're selling it. That could be an exemption. But they could be, if they just bought it and thought, hey, this is a good deal, we're going to try and flip it out, they could be subject to business income, especially if they do it and have been doing it for a history of time. So if this is the first one they've ever done, maybe not. But if that's sort of what they do, it's business income. Yeah, Julia.
What if you have a client buying a flipped house? Is there anything on the buyer side that we should cover for the buyers, or is it all in the hands of the seller?
It's all in the hands of the seller.
There's no tax issues, there's nothing that
no-
might,
No tax issue with the buyer whatsoever.
if they jumped the country and didn't pay their business tax on it, then it doesn't fly to the buyer?
No, because business tax actually is based on, it goes to your personal income. And no buyer will be subject to the responsibility of any seller's personal income.
Because I worry about that sometimes when it's a foreign seller, that they're not doing the 15% and.
Yeah, with a foreign seller though, if they are a foreign seller, there is some tax holdbacks that buyers, lawyers should be doing. Okay. Any comments on the marketplace, where you are? Did anybody rebuttal anything? Was this information valuable at all?
Yeah, it's always valuable. I mean, I find that there's not enough inventory here.
Yeah, and you're in a pocket that you're absolutely right.
There's
Yeah.
just like, there's buyers, but nothing to sell them.
And I know Amanda, I see her name here, but I'd like to find out, or Gary, I want to know what's going on in Sudbury, because Carl, he gave me the insight, but he's not here to chat. Either one of you want to give us some insight?
Yeah, hey, it's Amanda.
Great.
I'm one day back from vacation, so I'm here.
I see.
Well panned.
Yeah, you came home, Carl left.
Yeah, exactly.
All
He
right.
picked the perfect time to leave.
All right, so all you have to do is say, Carl's charts were bang on. That's all you
Yeah,
have to
no,
say.
he's always the one with the stats. He's the stat guy, and I appreciate his hard work when it comes to that stuff because he's on it. But we've definitely seen a slow, but certain pockets are still pretty active, right? Which I think it's
Yeah.
a lot for a lot of different markets.
Great. Any other comments before we wrap up? Any thoughts, questions? Anita, yes.
Okay, one question, or it's actually two, or one question. Michelle, do you think, I always put you on the spot here. Do you think you could take some of those graphs and logo them for us to use in social media? Would that be something we could look at, Scott?
Yeah, well, depending on which ones depending on the ones you want. Most of the ones for the Niagara region are all through ITSO.
Great.
The other ones are through CREA. So there's some graphs from CREA, which you're allowed to use. The question, I think what we have to do is if you're going to logo them, you need to say where the source came from.
Okay.
Okay, that's all. You just have to make sure if you're doing any, it doesn't matter where you are, if you're doing any kind of promotion where you're using graphs and things like that, you need to just state this information is provided through my membership at whatever board you're in, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Yeah.
that's good. And if anybody wants to take Michelle's SEO thing, I highly recommend it, where she goes through and looks at all your stuff. Even if you're like super great at your social media and your search engine optimization stuff, she will find a way to make you better. So I highly recommend reaching out to Michelle and doing that, because it's awesome. And I don't know, you could buy her lunch or something and she'll be very appreciative, I'm sure.
Thanks, Anita. That's, yeah.
Definitely don't need to buy me anything. I love doing it. And I'm so happy that when we came to the Niagara office, it was a success.
Definitely. Everybody's all keyed up down here to get their stuff moving, and we're working with them to move them forward in those directions. So it's perfect.
Good, and that's the key, right? Anytime you have anything that is analyzed and there are some suggestions for tweaking it and stuff, it is only as good as you do the tweaking, right? If you keep doing the same thing that you're always doing, you're going to get the same results. So it's great that we've had some really, and thank you, Anita, because I know we've had some really good feedback from that. So, and some really good comments. Thanks, Herbert. And Rhea, appreciate it. Amanda, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I think the people that have done it, can attest that I do also understand the accountability aspect of it, and I will reach out to you and continue to ask you if you have done things.
So, super. Oh, Diane, you're working on it? That's great. That's the magic word, working on it. That's okay.
That's all I want to hear.
Yeah, which is super. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time and over what we were allocating. I do want to say thank you. I really appreciate everybody being on here. We will send out the recording so that you can go through it. We'll attach some of those links as well so you know where to get the information, especially for anything to do with the driver's license verifications and then all the other stuff in the charts. But 2023 is going to be, and it will be, a good marketplace. You got to work smart. You got to work diligently. You got to make sure you follow exactly what you need to be doing on a daily basis. Take care of the day, take care of the week. At the end of the year, there'll be nothing but success. I wish you all the best. Reach out to me anytime, or Michelle, if we can help in any way. Thanks for being part of this. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.